Welcome to my presentation on a fashion analyst of the swinging 60s. Due to both the ecological concerns and rise in equal rights for women, textiles and patterns and styles for both genders were changing. Men during this era explored colors and entered fashion tribes. Young men typically grew their hair longer, while men, such as those in the rocker tribe, kept it fairly clean cut. Hats that were worn were usually fedoras or paperboy hats that were returning into mainstream fashion. Meanwhile, for women, dress in this era was fun and varied with no particular silhouette. Women of all ages participated in style tribes, whether it was the mods, the rockers, or the hippies. Skirts were getting shorter, with the look of the day being the miniskirt popularized by Mary Quant. Along with skirts, shoes also decreased in heel length. Hair was usually cropped short and done up in a bob, similar to the style donned by U.S. First Lady Jackie Kennedy, and donned with a hat, usually of the pillbox type, also popularized by Mrs. Kennedy. With the women's empowerment movement, clothing for both men and women changed, especially as more women were working outside of the home. While there were still women who preferred to be stay at home mothers, many others decided to have jobs outside of the house. Despite the feminist movement in the 60s, women were still limited in the type of job that they could hold. Most women were secretaries, bookkeepers, stewardesses, nurses, and other stereotypically feminine jobs. Despite this, women wore power suits as a way to express themselves in the workforce. For the women who preferred to be stay at home mothers or worked and house kept, they kept the home up and running, cooking and cleaning and caring for the children. Like women of the day, they wore what was fashionable, such as pantsuits. Pictured here is a Queen Elizabeth II with her daughter for a boat outing on the lake. Despite the equal rights movement in the 1960s, many women were not allowed to pursue higher education. In fact, many of the prestigious Ivy Leagues in the US, such as Harvard, Princeton, and Yale, did not begin to accept women until the late 1960s and even up until the early 70s. Columbia was an outlier as they did not start accepting women until 1983. Meanwhile, in the UK, although prestigious universities had been allowing women to attend for quite some time, the acceptance rates were restricted to a minimum amount. There was also pushback from men for many decades, with physical violence involved. Here are the social, political, and cultural movements of the day. Women's rights. Women in the 60s were being empowered to stand up for themselves. It was a new wave of the feminist movement, highly regarded as the second wave. Segregation and discrimination. Those whose skin color differed from the standard British were discriminated against. Even when they were born in England, they were regarded as a lower class and faced many of the discriminatory acts their brethren in the US felt. Wars, protests, and movements. Though not directly involved in the Vietnam War, young Brits protested against the war. They also protested for women's rights, black rights, and for Mother Earth. Art, music, architecture, media, and other influences. Art. Although there were many famous artists of the day, such as Andy Warhol, who thrusted pop art into the spotlight, one artist who was popular but lost influence at the height of her career due to her early death is Pauline Bodie. Bodie's artwork embodies the era with her eye for feminism and freedom of expression. Bodie went to school for art, pursuing it at a school that was male dominated. Music. Music culture at the time was on the rise due to an increase in expendable income and leisure time. Hippies were the ones who gave rise to the music festival with Glastonbury in the UK and Woodstock in the US. Among acts that were highly influential at the time were mostly male bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. However, to a lesser known degree, female bands were also prevalent at the time, albeit in the background, despite the era being known for its fight for equality. Bands such as the Liverbirds rose to cult popularity. Thank you for watching my presentation.